Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track from an X named Invadable Harmony titled The White Flame. And if we switch over to here, this track is not only on Spotify, it's on another range of other digital stream platforms. I'll link in the description for those if you've got one you prefer. But we're going to be listening through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Just get the art up there nice and big on the screen for you so you can check that out, and then let's go, let's do it. Fantastic sound design. Movement to hand drums. And dynamic range. Modulated harp or something like that? Or keys, right? Oh, and those flutes there are gorgeous, dude. Great texture and timbre to them. Really was a journey, wasn't it? That was fantastic. Fantastic track. Really solid instrumental there. That was Invadable Harmony with their song The White Flame from composer, apologies if I mispronounced this, Monia septi, mo near septi. Apologies if I mispronounced that, but we're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion section. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Invadable Harmony, titled The White Flame, composed by mo near septi. What do I think this track's about? I get the impression from the instruments within this, as it is an instrumental, that it is about a kind of ritual or a spell that's going on. There's some kind of occasion there. It's very mystical sounding with the instrument choices there. It does have that that kind of Egyptian vibe to it. You can see like in the art up there, you know, you've got like the person over top of a pyramid with like a sphere, an orb of power or something like that. And it kind of does give you like the music alone is enough to kind of imagine that with like the lady kind of singing melodies over top of it occasionally. It's very kind of like, oh, this is a sort of a spiritual thing going on there. There is a spell being placed there. There is some really cool stuff going on there. I think that it's just a great texture in the mix. It leaves you intrigued, but it's also just a tapestry of different instruments scattered throughout the arrangement in ways where they niche really wonderfully with each other, whilst also having their own sense of identity, leaving a track that is incredibly interesting from start to finish. I think just on the topic of the vocal overlays, I think that they had great technique there, and I think that was the right position in their range to choose for that. I think if you'd had words, it might have even been less of an experience, primarily because then you're kind of getting told at least one thing about it. If there's no words mentioned, then you're left to kind of completely figure it out, and I like that. I think that's a good little bit of challenge there. But if I talk about a few of the instruments we had within this track, as it was through composed, you know, there wasn't a verse chorus for a structure, not just by lack of lyrics, but also simply because of the fact that there were different parts to it structurally. You typically had a section where like there were like plucked parts and flutes there, and they had really cool textures there, and like you also had some hand drums that came in a bit later on, and things are about mid-range in regards to intensity until you got to that midsection where things came down and there were dynamic range and there was a pause there. What I appreciated about that is I think if there had been 4 minutes 18 of a similar intensity across the board from the instruments, it would have been like, yeah, no, we've got the idea, the concept. But when you adjust the way it's heard and you have that kind of space there, it makes the listener go, oh, why is this happening? Why are we doing this way? So I think that was smart. To come in with the keys after that was quite cool. And I thought they were a harp initially because of the modulation on them. I might be wrong, but there was like thin sounding sort of like keys there, but they were effective. I think if you'd had the keys brighter, it would have been a little bit jarring. To kind of soften them makes them a bit more ambient. I think that they did fit better into the overall arrangement because of that. I think that there was a phenomenal awareness of how to create a theme overall there, or an identity for this track, without needing to resort to chord progressions. His main kind of root note, which was prioritized or like throughout the entire track, and that had other instruments arpeggiate on top of it or place melodies on top of it. Occasionally had sort of tremolo picked parts by some string bits. There are some other flutes, and they typically came on either side of the stereo field, which was great because when instruments come in different points of the stereo field, it seems like the music is surrounding you, and it again makes it more interesting because you don't know what's going to happen next. It seems that you've really entered the world that they're in. And when things went down, you know, like an intensity in that middle part, it was like you were sucked in, and then boom, you're coming up again with the keys in addition to everything else. The keys in that mid part being an additional bit of interest, an additional layer to refresh what was already instantiated earlier on to continue throughout the rest of the track. I like the fact there were little subtle changes with the types of percussion we used, slightly different drums there. That was sparing as well. Like, we could have been very kind of pushy with the percussion if we wanted to establish a set groove throughout the track, but we didn't. It was occasional, and that made it more ambient, and it kind of let the music kind of linger there a bit, like you were in the mist. There was great use of melodic and harmonic minor scales throughout in the theme. With a lack of a rhythmic device for a lot of it, you're relying on the interwoven intersecting voices and the instrumental parts having a conversation between themselves. And when the voices died down in the mid part and then came up there, I think what was really powerful was that we had again that interesting scale choice, that sort of like kind of spicy, exotic tone there to kind of really sort of sell what the track was about in part, whilst also again relying on the occasional use of these interesting different woodwind and flute textures. There were some tones that you wouldn't necessarily hear in a lot of music that did fit really well with this, and I like those kind of like more traditional elements there. I think that it was smart, really did establish a theme there and an overall sort of environment that made sense. Overall, it was an incredibly tight performance with no note out of place, and I think that I don't think there was any filler in it. At 4 minutes 20, it's a longer track, but that time was well spent in part because of the things I mentioned about the diversity within the arrangement and the performance. The studio recording, mixing and mastering was fantastic. It was commercial grade. There was a great clarity to the elements in the mix, whether it was the vocal parts, whether it was the the stringed pluck parts, or the picked parts, the different flute or woodwind patterns, the percussion, any of those things there. They were all niche nicely within the frequency spectrum as well as in the stereo field there. Things were leveled incredibly well. Things were positioned in that stereo field actually quite brilliantly. It almost seemed like a movie soundtrack because of how kind of conscious I think we were of this needs to go here in order to answer this thing, you know? And I also want to give a quick shout out to, whilst I talked about the scales and stuff like that they were using within the track, resting on top of that, whilst retaining interest, I also think it's impressive how well we were able to get all those different instruments to play different ideas and get them to coalesce. It's not an easy thing, even when you have really cool sounding instruments and really interesting rhythmic and melodic ideas. It's not easy to get them to behave together in overall harmonies. And like this, but I think we did do incredibly well. And that's when often people will resort to chord progressions in order to get a sort of set movement through it. But here, again, because of more ambient, it's a really well written piece. There was dynamic range, and things were nice and loud, uploading to the bus compression, and limiting was handled. And effectively, this is just a really positive review of this track from an act named Invadable Harmony, titled The White Flame, song titled The White Flame, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and their Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.